Determining the size of your cube can often be quite a difficult decision to make. In this video, we're going to be discussing the topic to try and help make this a lot easier. Hello and welcome to Life Begins at 20. My name is Mark and thank you so much for joining me. Now, I've had a fair few messages come through either via Twitter, email and so on, basically asking me the same question, and that is, how big should I make my cube? Now, this early on in the series of the build along, I thought it would be a good idea to actually talk about this topic in further detail to try and help make this decision a lot easier for people to actually determine how big they should make their cubes. So without any further ado, let's get stuck in. The general principle and the piece of advice that's often batted around for cubes is that if you want to do an 8-man draft, then you'll need 360 cards in your cube. This kind of works in a similar way that if you want to then have, say, 2 8-man pods, you'll need 720 cards in your cube. While these sizes are more than good enough for an 8-man draft, you'll end up finding that 100% of the cards you actually put into your 360 card cube will end up being drafted in any 8-man draft. Now, this is more than fine if that's what you actually wanted to do, but the problem is there'll be little to no variance whatsoever in any of these drafts. You'll end up finding over a course period of time, your players will end up start to figure out your cube, and you'll end up seeing the same decks being played over and over again. Now, if this is something you're more than happy with, fine, granted, definitely just stop the video now, that's all you need to know. But if you're looking to add a lot more variance into your cube, plus play a few other games as well for draft formats being either sealed or any of the other draft formats are put into Cube for 2, which I'll put a card on the screen now for you, then you're going to need to actually adjust the cube in a different way, and we're going to be talking about those variations now. If you're going to be sticking to the typical 8-player draft, then these sizes will show you how much of the card pool is going to be used in any typical draft. So as mentioned earlier, 360 cards would see 100% of the cube drafted, and then going up in 45 card increments, we have 89% of the cards being used at 405, 80% at 450, 73% at 495, 67% of the cube at 540, 62% at 585, 57% of the card pool at 630, 53% at 675, and then finally at 720 cards, we're seeing 50% of the cards in the cube being used. Now, this is typical of an 8-man draft, but if you reduce the numbers, the percentage of the cubes seen will lower per person. So as you can see now on the table for the 7 and 6-player drafts. So from this, think about the playgroup that you have and you'll be able to see roughly which size is starting to suit you. I wouldn't hesitate to make a larger cube than a typical 360 for variance, and you can always slowly expand or cut down at a later date to a size that suits you. This could either be with keeping the power level of the cube up or the ability to create decks for the archetypes that you're trying to support. You could argue that the draft quality of the cube would be reduced from the increase in size, but at the same time that is the price you have to pay to add variance in your drafting experiences. This detriment at the end of the day is only down to the quality of the cards that you put in to increase the numbers. It is certainly more than possible to have a great drafting experience at a higher card count. Now, the next thing to think about is alternate ways to actually playing your cube rather than just the 6 to 8 player typical draft. Now, there's plenty of videos on the channel at the moment for the Cube for 2 series, which also has some variations which work for larger numbers, but we're going to go through some typical one here now that I actually tend to play with my playgroup, and they are very, very popular. So we're going to start off with sealed. Sealed is a typical way to play cube if you're in a bit of a rush, so the breakdown is the amount of the cube's card pool that you'll see at any given time. 90 cards are needed per player for sealed to build a deck from. So to start off with 2 players, we see 50% of the cards from a 360 card cube, and as you can then see in the table, the percentage then starts to decrease the larger the cube becomes. If we then look at 3 players, you'll see 75% of the card pool in a 360 card cube, and then again, as you can see, the percentage then starts to drop the higher we then become. Then when we go into 4 players, 100% of the cube at 360 cards will end up being used for this, and again the numbers then start to decrease the larger you end up going, adding in a little bit more variance. As you can see from the numbers here, depending on the number of players that you have in your playgroup will determine the size you need to be able to play sealed and how much of the cube's card pool you'll actually see. Of course, you can do a sealed event for more than 4 players, so just have to adjust the numbers accordingly, taking into account that you'll need 90 cards per player to be able to play it. So next up we have the Glimpse draft, and this is something that my playgroup tends to play when we don't have more than 4 people, and if you'd like to see a guide for this, it's on the channel as well, and I put a card on the screen now for you to take a look at that. And this is definitely something I would highly recommend playing if you haven't done so already with limited numbers, especially as because the number of cards you end up getting, the more packs you're going to pack 1 picks you're going to be getting as well, means that the overall power level of the decks you're going to be creating are a lot stronger. For the Glimpse draft, you'll need to have 135 cards per player, which is 9 packs of 15, and doing so will give you the following results. As you can see from here, depending on the group and the maximum number of players I'd ever recommend for a Glimpse drafting being 4, you can see how much of the cube's card pool you'll see at any given game. For 2 players, again, recommending 360 cards is more than able to actually support that, seeing 75% of the cube itself, whereas for 3 players to do a Glimpse draft, you'll need a minimum of 405 cards, and that will end up seeing 100% of the cards in the actual cube itself, whereas for 4 players, you'll need a minimum of 540 cards in your cube. So the last variation we've got here is the site draft, and this is something that we tend to do with larger number of players, so anywhere between say 4 to 6 is a really good range for this, and it's definitely worth giving a try. I'll do a video in the coming weeks of actually how to play this if you aren't familiar with the site draft itself, but in the description below there I will put bullet points of a rough guide of how to actually play the game, and as you'll be able to see on the tables now, what you'll need to actually have to actually support this. So each player will need 90 cards each, which is 5 packs of 18, which is exactly the same number of cards as you need to play sealed. So again, for 4 players, at 360 cards, you'll see 100% of the cube itself. Whereas if you wanted to play with 5 players, you'd need a minimum of 450. And if you wanted to play with 6 players, you'd need a minimum, again, of 540. So again, you're starting to get a picture of the number of cards you'll need to support different drafting options and variations, and there are a fair few more out there, but as you can see from the various results, it's not as cut and dry as it would first appear, where you just go, okay, I just need 360 cards in my cube to support 8 men. Yes, that's right, but again, you'll need to actually support more if you want to do other variations, and it's completely up to you on the limited experience you want to create. So after all that, you might be expecting me to be telling you how big you should be making your cubes, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not going to be doing that. The reason for that is every single cube is completely different. It's completely determined up to you how you would like your limited experience to be for either for yourself or the playgroup that you have. Everybody's playgroup is going to be completely different. Everybody's idea of what a good limited environment should be is going to be completely different as well. So me being able to say, okay, you need to have this, this, and this, it is completely contradictory to all of that. It's completely down to you how you would like to build your cube, and these are the resources here that I've put up there, and there's going to be, again, more available on the internet as well, basically to be able to tell you, I'll give you a rough guide of what kind of sizes you need to be able to do to support variations and different things as well. But overall, if you are only going to be doing 8-man drafting, 360 cards is a great starting point if you don't want to have any variation. If you want to actually add a bit of variation in there or play any other different draft types, again, the higher the size of the cube, the easier this is going to be to become. Now, for me, if you wanted to actually support a wide variety, so anything from sealed, glimpse drafting, site drafting, and then doing full pod games with variation involved as well, I'd be looking at 405 to say 450 as a good starting point there. But like I said earlier, it doesn't matter how big that you make your cube as long as you are happy with the limited experience that you are giving your players. Now, you could be okay, I've only got, say, 4 people, we do glimpse drafting, but I want it to be this big so that we've got loads of variation. Go for it, completely go for it. It's completely down to you how big you would like to make your cube and the limited experience that you want to create. And I can't stress that enough. It's completely, the whole point of creating a cube is so that you can create the limited experience that you want to create. And that is absolutely, bottom line, the most important thing here. Yes, balance and all that other kind of stuff goes with this, but the size of the cube is completely down to how you want to come across and how the limited experiences you want to create for everybody else. So, like I'd say, let me know in the comment section below how big your cube is, as well as telling me how you kind of came to decide what size that would be, because if there's any new players around as well that's thinking about, you know, how big they want to make their cubes, it'd be a perfect way for them to actually have a look through the comment section to see how big people's cubes are and how they've come to that decision as well. And it'd be really interesting to see how big the cubes that you all have and how you came to that decision as well. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I would just like to take this moment to thank my Patreons of the channel. I can't thank you enough for the help and support that you're giving me. If you'd like to do the same, head over to patreon.com/lifebeginsat20, and there'll be a link in the description below for that as well, where there are plenty of rewards to choose from. With your support, we can really push to make this channel even better. Be sure to check out our sponsor, 5colorcombo.com, for a great range of Magic the Gathering accessories with stunning artwork, plus a great app to draft and create decks on the fly. Use the referral code LifeBeginsAt20 for 5% off. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. With your support, we can really help this channel to grow. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.